Hey y'all, Jason here again with another great talk from the D2 Vienna 2018. Tudor Vasiliu from the Panopticon gave a very personal talk about his journey in arch-viz. We really enjoyed hearing Tudor's story and we think you will too. You know what else we enjoyed? Posing for these high quality cutouts. The fantastic folks at VisUtil took a bunch of great photos of D2 attendees and have released it as a free collection. Not only that, but they're offering 20% off their high quality cutout collections in their online store for a limited time. You can find the link to the D2 collection and the 20% off code right down there in the description. Once again, thanks for watching. And now here's Tudor at the D2 Vienna 2018. I'll see you soon.
My name is Tudor. I founded Panoptikon in 2014. We're based in Bucharest. It's a small studio still. I mean, for us at least, it's still in the infancy, although we're 3 years old, four almost. So we are mainly a focused on still views. We don't do so much video. The stuff that we've seen yesterday was mind-blowing. So I think you're going to be extremely bored by the little boring slideshow that we put together for you guys who haven't never seen our work or don't know who we are or whatever the hell we're doing. So let's get on to it. It's very, very short. You won't even see what's coming, and it's gone. Thank you so much. So it's really embarrassing to show something like that. It's a slideshow, so we've never done that. With all the clients we've ever had asking for impossible deadlines for videos, we never actually allowed ourselves to deliver something like this. So this is the most embarrassing video we've ever shown. Okay, so the name. Our name is a bit of a fascination, a bit of a geeky thing for me. It comes from the Greek pan optesai, which means to see everything. And since I was, a panopticon is actually a prison. It was designed in 1786 by a guy called Jeremy Bentham as a prototype for monitoring cheap labor in factories, then became this kind of a prototype of prison or school or library or other kind of mental institutions. Some of them still exist. It's a fascinating thing for me. I've always wanted to do a personal project on something like this. It's probably going to come by the time I'm 50 or 80 or something. I was a Rem Koolhaas fanboy in university times, so I was reading basically stuff like his projects with Elias Engelis, where he demolished the main tower in the middle. So it's a matter of contrast and controversial approach to this prototype. All the architecture students are doing at some point something related to control or this kind of a big brother approach to monitorization. Then the Exodus project, the voluntary prisoners of architecture, was one other type of project where I thought one of the episodes, in case you don't know, this was a place where people would gather, running away from the city, from all the bad and weird things happening in a city, just to live in a confined space where all the ludic and the ludicrous and all the pleasures would be accomplished. So one of the episodes in the Exodus project, in the Exodus series, was this kind of space where the privacy concept was being reversed. So these were the bathrooms where the people would exhibit their pleasures. So it's once again the contrast between the actual meaning of the term and its reversed process, which brings out this exhilarating sort of notion. Then I used to love this because this is from Jacques Tati's Playtime film, where he built this enormous set. Is fascinating in terms of architecture as well, because it cost them millions of francs to produce in 3 years to build this huge, enormous set for this movie. And this is one really, it's a comedy. So this guy is following, he's looking for an accountant here, and it's all just a very short game of cat and mouse where people are basically confined over there. They are like in a theater, like on a stage. This guy is looking for the accountant who's running away. He never finds him eventually. So it's just the role of architecture, which for me was a world of fascinating concepts, which basically informed my vision about visualization later on. I didn't know I would be a visualizer, so to speak, in later years, but eventually this happened. So just to give you a quick idea, we try, I mean, during the past couple of years, we realized that we got to look back again, and you know, if you just look at history, you will find the Romantics with such amazing images and concepts where they paint the light. It's basically a dark, grim background or backdrop, and if you squint, I mean, squinting is for me the perfect, the ultimate tool for a visualizer. If you squint and just blur out everything, you will understand how the image works. It can be a thumbnail or it can be a big image, and you would still see what they have to say. They're directing you toward the setting sun, which is over there. It is really fascinating. So I'm just taking a historic trip here to the 1800s. It's basically the same kind of way they direct you, and we're basically the viewers down here. They are incorporating us into the painting, and you see this a lot in concept art and stuff like that. But it's for us now. It's a way, after many years of let's say aimlessly looking at stuff and renders and photos and whatnot, to really understand, take a step back and look back into history. This is from Amsterdam from 1911. It's quite recent, but it's still a sample of what you can do if you just take a look at how you can move the elements, the natural elements, and use them in your advantage. Of course, Mike Golden will talk about this later on, I guess. The Zoning Law by Hugh Ferris from 1922, a perfect example of how you can use contrast to direct the attention in an image. He was a master of this. But we're just, I don't think we are at this level, but it's just what we like. And of course, Simon Stallenhager, I hope to see him here one day, possibly, with a sort of vision of a filmic proportion where he's using almost the same techniques as those guys before him, and it's quite a fascinating thing since it's the digital realm that we work in. Ground zero for me was, so this is my personal journey, just to make you understand how I came to become an architect, how I came to work with images, and I think I was predestined or predetermined by factors that I had no control of. And I think the work that I've done and we've done as a team, as Panopticon, and my previous team before that, which I had started in 2006, was, I think, basically just a series of weird, uncontrollable events drifting through them, banging our heads, without almost no control at some point. So this is how I feel about part of my life. This is from Donnie Darko. It's a favorite movie of mine, where this guy is a schizophrenic, and this guy Frank, it's a big giant ugly bunny, tells him what to do. And I don't literally say that I hear voices, but I think these guys, my parents, when they were 20 or 21, they were photographed in the School of Architecture. I think they were, for me, the driving force, even without me knowing it. So because of them, I was the youngest architecture student in my world, at least. I felt like it's a bit far-fetched, but Yo-Yo Ma told a story. This is the most famous celloist in the world. He told a story about how he was born in a family of musicians, and he was born in Paris, and then they moved, when he was 7, they moved to the US, and he became this huge star, and Herbert von Karajan invited him to play with his orchestra at age 7. So eventually he became interested in how this choice that he never had to pursue this career, how that influenced him, and what was he able to draw as a conclusion later on when he said, why in the world am I doing this? So it's about introspection at some point. The tools of the trade back then, even so, my parents were taking me to their classes. They were dropping me off in the offices of teachers. I was there eventually. Teachers would call me by name. They would recognize me in school. So I was fascinated with this drawing board. It's called the ISIS. It's called the ISIS, and I used to draw on one of these. My parents had 2 of these. They were like 200 kilos back in the house. So that's probably one of the reasons that my favorite drawings as a kid were axonometries. This is probably age 8. I don't know why I was in awe with Japan. God knows. And that's one of the first drawings which is a bit structured. I'm going to show you one more which has got a sort of a different perspective on things. So the context of my upbringing was this. We were a communist country. These guys were building the People's House, which is the second largest building in the world after the Pentagon. It was a happy, unhappy time. My parents were hipsters in a way, so they would go clubbing, and they had their own. The architecture community was then. This looks like a bit like an enclave of people getting together with the same ideal. So they were protected by their ideas, by gathering together and doing things, and they were creative, and they were making clothes, and they were listening to cool music, although the regime was not allowing any of this. These were the queues, the famous queues for food. And at the same time, we were pioneers. I was a pioneer too. They would try to brainwash us into the system. Luckily for me, I was not worried too much about the political situation because I had this. Anyone who remembers this, maybe it's a system with a 3.5 megahertz CPU unit and 48 kilobytes of ROM, and either 16 or 48 kilobytes of RAM, which was huge for that time. All these cassettes, you would need to connect. I mean, just same for the younger people. You need to connect a tape player, and you would probably wait for another 20 or 30 minutes to load one of these games. So I was playing The Way of the Exploding Fist, or Saboteur, when life as well as missions was really, really simple. And the most impossible game in the world, Harrier Attack, where you would fly this plane and just bomb those guys down there, but you could never land the plane. So this was in conjunction with my impression of the revolution that happened in Romania in 1989. We had a coup d'etat, let's say. They called it a revolution. So this was my elevation of a revolution. I used to. I wasn't there. I wasn't protesting. People are protesting right now, probably as we speak. But my parents were there. I was a bit scared, and as you can see, there's a lot of blood everywhere. So not a joking topic, but nonetheless. After this event, my parents, who were employed until then in Architecture Research Institute, they were designing basically whatever the regime was building, mainly residential blocks. They became entrepreneurs. So for me, that was the most important thing. This was bought at an extravagant price. They were, I don't know if they wanted to do it for themselves or for me, but they were embracing the internet. They were embracing the digital age. So for me, I was becoming a digital kid. I was becoming a geek, a nerd. And this was my access to what later became my fascination for visuals. This was SimCity 2000. You probably got frustrated with it. I don't know. I couldn't bear my brains were blowing up. But I remember doing this in architecture school later on. And of course, I was playing Mortal Kombat. I was raiding all the time, winning, obviously. So since I was a young architecture student at age 9 months, later after high school, there was the obvious choice was love it or love it. So I just embraced the tools of the trade. These are my tools from back then. I think I inherited this one, this tool set from my parents, and those ones I think I bought. I used to use their tools, the rotring pens, the technical drawing pens. And then, before that, in fact, what did you have to do to get into university in Romania? Well, you had to learn how to render. So these are my first renders. We would do 2 years of study before university. That's really awkward. If you were not a master of drawing, you could not get into university. So for 2 years, all the people were paying insane amounts of money to learn how to draw. My university years took me then to Switzerland, to Mario Bottai's University in Mendrisio, and then I really started to get into theory and history, laying the base. I later got back to Bucharest and then went to another school. But in Mendrisio, I met this guy. This is from one of his studios. I wasn't in his studio, in fact, but the way his sensitivity and his brutalist approach to emotion, in a way, kind of filled me with this set of ideas that I never had before, and the school that I was in had not transferred to me. Then I came back to Bucharest. It was like a blah, 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 4 years of nothing. And then I went to the Netherlands studying for a year. I went on becoming this super fanatic of OMA. I wanted to work there. I did everything I could. I was reading everything. Everybody was... Of course, we were not the... We didn't have the access to information that we have right now. It's really strange to think about it in these terms, but there were no blogs, no architecture blogs. There was no free information. You had to go to school to the library to get all these books and stuff like that. A student could not afford to buy the books or the magazines, so it was like a huge win for people like me who were in a sort of a position where I needed information. The school wouldn't provide it, so you had to build your own sort of set of ideas. After school, I did one year in a design studio, so I was just producing concepts for competitions mainly. But at some point, a friend of my sister's, in fact, she was working in this real estate marketing agency called Colliers, approached me and said, okay, I think, would you be able to produce, like, we need an animation for this client, we need some floor plans, we need some stuff. What do you think? I had been working all through university, so I had this friend who was pretty much a guru in 3D, for that time at least. So we ended up with the first commission. I finished my first year of internship. I was supposed to do 2 years. For me, it was a one-way ticket. So this was the first project. Back then, in 2006, Bucharest was booming with real estate. We had very limited experience, so we were just doing projects for school and projects for the studios that we were working in. So we were not exactly zero talent, but I don't think we were ever ready for something like this. We were extremely happy with what we were doing. These are the first ever renders we've ever sold. Just look at the quality of everything. It's just it's a really bad draft. But these were the final images, and these are the prettiest. I was so ashamed to show you the bad ones, but trust me, they are hideous. These guys were extremely happy with the work. Of course, they criticized us. We were not ready for criticism. Back then, we thought, okay, we are the only guys doing this over here, so how could anybody say anything bad about the stuff that we do? This was insane. I mean, we were just, I don't think I could explain how pissed off at the feedback we were. It's crazy. Some other projects were next, and since we were kind of the only studio doing this in Bucharest, and I think there was another studio doing renders in general, but these guys came to us. They probably dropped all of the residential projects in our lap. So we started working with these kinds of ugly, ugly, I would call them ugly now, but we were extremely happy with getting these commissions back then. So for almost every project that we did in 2006, 2008, 9, 10, we produced animations. I'm not going to show them. You're going to see a part of them a bit later. But this was kind of the quality. I mean, for me, this is an HDRI right now. I don't know why we were thinking that. Below there is the build project. So you can see the uncanny resemblance. I don't think we were far from that. It's still a very, very strange, even the point of view is weird. I don't know why we decided why we did these things, but I think we were just different people. It's not the same project, but it looks the same. These are again, we were still using, I mean, for the first time here, V-Ray had VR meshes. So in the previous project, there was no VR mesh. This was just a pure polygon, super high dense polygon scene, which we were barely able to open on our 8 gigabytes of RAM computers. So the money was really, really scarce. We were just starting off. So for any of you out here who's beginning, I think you're in a much better position than us back then. This was what I call the circus of real estate. It's just a sum of projects that we did along 1 year of work. And for almost each one, I think we had produced a film, a short film. They were probably around 3 to 5 minutes long. So this was done for one of their real estate fairs, where they were presenting these were from, various clients. And I don't know what you think, but I'm horrified by the quality of the work we were producing. Then we started to learn. The references we had back then were some American companies. We were looking at D-Box and Mir, and they were, something else. We were trying to learn. We were trying to do our best to improve the work. I don't think we ever got at that level. Probably Mir was doing some very interesting work, but they were sketching onto the images and they were putting them out, and they would be like little paintings, very artistic. I wish I had brought some of those today, but I think it's really, if you know them, they were very different from what they do today. Then hundreds of other projects, probably getting us to understand what we were doing. We had very, very little idea of what was coming, so we were very, very optimistic. I think one of the things that got us through this crazy period without ever looking back was the ignorance and the cluelessness about what we were doing. We were always taking in more work than what we could do. We never passed a deadline, so we never missed a deadline. That was our main goal. But we were always one step behind, technologically, artistically, and maybe in management terms. Probably the most important idea in my previous life, and something that really changed the course of what I did, was the pro bono work. I know this is a big problem in the community, and some people say you should do it, some people say you shouldn't do it. But I had a friend who had quit OMA and started his studio and was asking me, okay, do you want to do this little competition with us? We're just 2 or 3 people. Let's split the prize if we win. I was like, yeah, we have no time, we got to pay the bills, but what the hell. So this project was, for me and for us, in fact, one that was pretty controversial. It was a student residence in Athens, in the Kerameikos area, which was quite a decrepit area in the city. And this developer had bought dozens of properties, and he wanted to turn the area to upgrade various hubs and transform this into a livable and nice place to be. They were, a company who owned also oil and stuff like that. But we took on this competition. They won, and eventually these images became these images later on when the project got developed. Then, recession struck and it was scrapped. But it got a lot of press, a ton of controversy, because the whole idea of renovating a central area in Athens where immigrants were coming in, and there was a lot of problem with violence and crime, and some people wanted to just tear it down. Was very, very very controversial, and because of the press, I think we eventually got so much more attention. We were based in Romania, working for Romanian companies. we were doing great because real estate was crazy. But at some point, real estate died. So this kind of work was our ticket out of there. Some other projects were really interesting, and I think the takeaway from this would be that even if your client is a guy who doesn't really care sometimes about what you do and what you're good at, you can still put out work, which it's like for me, these were like personal projects, in fact. I could do whatever the hell I wanted. I had very little criticism from my friends. They were mainly concerned about materials. This is a school in Mem Martins in Sintra in Portugal. Another type of project which after being delivered just spinned out of control because these guys won the competition once again, so they had begun to have a very good track record in winning. However, the second prize challenged the first prize. This was a very, very strange situation where the money was pretty shady. It got, again, a lot of press. It was published here and there. The first prize was cancelled altogether, so it never got built. But for us, as a very tiny studio, so just to imagine, we were 2 people for several years. Then we had another guy come in, helping us with various things. Now he works for Binyan, by the way. A really cool guy, came in and helped us. But the previous work that we've done and all that stuff were a one-man show kind of project. So people were asking us, how many people are you? 20? No, we're 2 or 3. Okay, great. So we were used to doing enormous amount of work in very, very short time, which is not something you have to brag about nowadays, but I think you all know what I'm talking about. So these kind of projects, again, brought us a lot of attention and got us out of the Romanian market. And pro bono, you gotta know when to do it, but for us, it really paid off. Panopticon came along the way. I split from my previous brand because we had, different ideas. Anyway, I think we were almost flat, no clients for a while, and I just said, okay, I'm gonna drop this. He kept the previous brand, and I restarted this by the end of 2013. I started with a website, some really bad work from previous years, and that thing over there on the right is a video that I'm going to play for you. It's just to see how it's really embarrassing. Again, I'm not trying to show off. It's the work that we have done previously in the previous life years, but eventually we got started on that one. Enjoy. makes me laugh. Yeah, thank you, thank you. So even with this kind of bad work, somehow we managed to get clients. Basically, my takeaway of this previous period was that we had no idea what we were doing. We had no control over anything. People were coming to us. We were not doing marketing. We were not strategizing. We were just spending money on software and hardware, and whatever we were making, we were putting back into the company. We were afraid to hire anyone. We were so, I mean, I was a control freak, he was a control freak, my ex-partner. This was really, I mean, for most people, I think it's a start, and you got to do whatever the hell you can. But I think if we had learned from other people, we probably would have been in a better place at some point. So just the type of projects that followed after we restarted were already too big for me, just one person. This was one type of project which probably defined the entire period that would follow. So from real estate projects who were maybe 3 months long, and some competitions here and there for the local architects, we ended up doing almost uniquely projects for competitions for architecture studios. And this is one project by an office in Hamburg. I had 4 days to produce 4 images, which some people still do nowadays. Luckily for me, there was some background from previous renders, so I had absolutely no control over the viewing points, the time of day, absolutely nothing. So even with my vision that asked for, let's try something different, let's blah, 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 nothing. So 48 times 2 hours of not sleep, I had finished this project and set the benchmark for my for the way I worked for these guys. So they were convinced that I had absolutely zero life. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't having weekends. So they said, okay, this is it. You're the type of guy that we want to work with. Great. That was great. So from the same kind of perspective, this is much later on, and I'm just showing these projects. I'm not really so I'm not trying to show you stuff that I'm proud of, but these things have had consequences for us, and a project of this magnitude. This is a U.S. client. A project of this magnitude poses various problems for us, and we sometimes feel, even if the technology had advanced, we feel as if we're again in 2006 working on super slow computers with no memory. These are projects that kept evolving during the design, because we are basically the partners of these architects designing their project. So it's not like you can get a final piece of work when you start, even if you're asking for it. And we almost never delivered this one. Our PCs were dying. We couldn't render. The 3D people would suddenly scale up 1,000 times. The memory was not enough. We didn't have any time. We spent a weekend trying to figure out that the textures and the assets. Of course, these. I mean, after so many years of work, you probably are wondering, are you stupid? Like, what? Don't you know? We were optimizing the hell out of our projects and models before in 2006. However, in this torrent of work and crazy clients, we almost forgot that it's the same. The technology pushes forward. You have to push forward. You can push forward, but just be aware that it will eventually trick you if you're not careful. So these types of projects are probably still too big for us at some point, And maybe when considering to accept something like this, you should be really careful. At least this is my advice to us, and probably to you guys who are just starting off. These are some of the pics, the images that we made. Project was too big, I think. We are 50% of at the potential that we could have taken these two. Then another project which really floored us completely, so we were completely out of control on these ones. This is, again, an American client, design company producing a project for EMAR Square. This is, hopefully, will remain confidential just between you and me, okay? The scale, the magnitude of the type of feedback that these guys, which are a huge company, the developers, and probably around 30 people deciding on one view, the scale of that feedback is just enormous. It's like reading a novel onto each image that's being delivered. We produce about 20-something images for these guys, and we learned how to read, basically, in this time. So bye artist, hello literature. Again, nothing to be, I think there's nothing for us to be proud of in these ones. These are just too big for the type of event that that manifests in the end. We are super excited to do something like this, not necessarily because it's just a challenge for us. I cannot say I'm a fan of the architecture. I'm really a fan of Zoomtor, right? I said that already. I'm not a fan of the magnitude of the project, of the urbanism in this project. But I was just so fascinated with whether or not we could do it. So I would just, we took it on. And at the end of the day, after losing so much money, because we couldn't afford to pay the salaries and the expenses from the prices we got for this project, and we were not cheap. But the time we spent and the way all of these, all of this feedback eventually spinned out of control took us onto the minus level. Stopping for a little, and I'm going to speed it up because there's not too much time left. These kinds of projects are the ones that we like, and I urge everyone here to consider that at some point, and I'm not proud of that, but these projects are the true challenge in our field. The real challenge is to make this kind of vision that we have fit this kind of vision that the client has. So it's an ongoing process. I don't think it'll ever end. For me, it's a fascination. I think it will keep me going for years. But in these cases, we had all the freedom we needed. So in this project, the client was a friend of mine. He had no idea what he wanted to do. He just had a building. The site was amazing. Panopticon, we chose the viewing points. He was really happy and surprised. We got this extremely strange looking image done in a couple of days, the entire project. Then other type of work that we do are really, office projects and stuff like that. But at least some of them make us a bit happier than the previous ones. There's that kind of work and this kind of work where it's still manageable. And this kind of image, going back to that concept where you can propose and you can have the freedom and you can inform the client, you can become the partner. We found this sort of photograph online and we proposed this view and we handed over the image for free. So I think I would be happy to just do that whenever I think it brings out that kind of idea of a personal touch that you can bring to a project. Not being able to publish some of these, I started naming them and realized that people get attached, and you guys probably get attached to your work, and name them like babies. And of course, I named this, what did I name it? Abduction, yes. I didn't have that over here. I just looked at the image. Of course, the projects are just, shopping malls and all kinds of stuff, just wanting to show you that the direction that we are trying to follow is something that makes the client a bit emotional. They tend to get super happy when we surprise them with something like that. It's always risky for any kind of project for us to. It's like a trap. You go there where you want to go, fearing that the client will say no. That's always the case. And of course, we like conceptual projects, weird ideas. This is a weird kind of looking project, but it's something that, in spite of the way that the client managed the project, and they pushed us to the limit, and we were changing the project every day. So I'm sure it happens to everyone. I think eventually we made them a bit happy with the stuff that we made. It's always, you have to cringe, you have to push on, and hopefully everyone will be okay with it. And smaller kind of work, smaller kind of projects where we could focus like in a personal work on details and making that stone look amazing. And I know the water sucks, but these things over here are gardens, and we're not used to this kind of sky and atmosphere. Only the Greek can do it, and the Spanish maybe other people too. But for us, it was really a really challenging thing to approach something like that. And hopefully we convey something, we give them some emotional response. And even more boring projects like this one, just trying to take you to that summer feeling where you're out having a burger, or stuff like that. It's really nice if our vision kind of fits and expresses something. It's a banal looking architecture in France. They all do it the same. The last project I'm going to show, it's a special project. This was a Japanese design company, pretty edgy and conceptual, and this is the extension of the Bela Foundation in Vienna, close to Basel. This is Renzo Piano's initial extension of the foundation, and this was the brief. We need a walkthrough or a fly-through from that point, going around this new monument and through the building into the garden in the back. The garden with hundreds of years of old trees, and you just need to build the entire site in 12 days, no problem. You have historic buildings over there. This is a render that they made, a quick jot from pictures with the intervention. I really loved what they did, so for me it was not a question of yes or no, it was just like, let's do it, guys. So we got these blueprints, and yeah, let's do it. 10 working days, an animation, possibly a few images that they eventually scrapped because, okay, they had their own stuff. So a really simple and straightforward brief. We loved and hated the process because, of course, they were really mild in their comments. This is one of the sets, but they were really, really precise. So one of the greatest things about this project, and something that we got so frustrated about, was the fact that they wanted us to go through the glass with a camera. I was saying, guys, we have a camera, we cannot walk through glass. They were, no, you can walk through glass. Okay, let's walk through glass, but let's go through the door. No, go through glass. Okay, if that is the worst frustration you can have in a project, so be it. I wish all of you to go through the same kind of experience. So we handed this to them for free because we loved the environment, we loved the ideas, we loved the work of these artists showing up, and the way the building looked. Maybe their image was a bit more expressive, but I think we didn't really care about money on this one. And this is the film. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. So it's far from what I've seen yesterday. It's you guys are crazy amazing. This was one of the things that I think, as a person, this was more like a personal project for us. Luckily, there was a client. We got some money. My takeaways from my experience, so starting off with absolutely no idea of what we were doing and no control over who was coming to us, what type of project we were getting. The outcome, we knew we just had to hand in the work at some point, at some fixed date, but that was it. We entered the recession with absolutely zero money in our account because we had just bought Autodesk software. So just try not to do that. For those of you who are starting off, it's just think of things. And this is the moment you can all stop and reevaluate why you want to do this. Why are you in this community? I mean, now you have a community, but previously you were just a guy sitting behind a desk of the computer. No weekends, no nights. So is it passion? Is it inertia? Have you been doing this for too long and you cannot stop? Or what happened? Is it the money? There's no money in here. I mean, not at this level. If you look at other guys, yes, probably. Reformulate your vision and your goals. What do you want to achieve and how fast do you want to go there? Who do you want to be? Like, do you want to be this amazing painter? Do you want to be the next Rembrandt? Do you want to be a guy who's doing user experience in 3D? Who do you want to be? Reorganize your workflow and your process. This is what we're trying to do right now. I think it's a turning point for us in 2018. It's really important that you realize that at some point you have to pass it on to your team, and it's not just about you, or maybe you're a 5-person company or an 8-person company, but if you want to scale the skills that you have, and all of you are amazingly talented, make sure you can scale in a healthy way, and you can train yourselves to pass on this amazing vision that you have to your colleagues. Rephrase how you communicate yourself and how you communicate to your clients. This is really important because we're now used to be, we used to be and are still used to be opposing our clients. We're always fighting and trying not to be rude, and I don't know who isn't. If one of you has a recipe for success in this kind of situation, please come forward. Put it up there and we will all take notes. reclaim your rights as an artist, as a partner of your clients, as a business, as whatever you want to become. At some point, they will step on you, or you will. If you don't claim, you won't gain. Ultimately gain control over your future. I think it's a theme that. I mean, personally, I was never a planner. I was always surprised in the way the events would turn out. So try to try to draw a plan for yourself, and think of who you want to be in the end. My final word on this is that the passion can be a strategy. The art can be a goal. For us, at least, the art remains the ultimate, the holy grail of this kind of work. This is amazingly hard to do, and it's full of frustration, and all of that stuff was somehow organized differently than other business, other types of businesses in the creative sector, but. Eventually, you have to be in control, even if you allow yourself to be out of control at some point. I'd like just to thank all of these people, mainly D2 for inviting us. Thank you, Fabio and Jason and Christian. You are amazing, and thank you. I don't know why you picked us, but thank you. And all of these people doing great work for us, and without them we would be nothing. So I would just be painting right now. Thank you so much, guys.